Video presentation by Amanda Brown. Vygotsky's social cognitive theory. Vygotsky believes cognitive development comes from social interactions from guided learning within the zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is the difference between what a learner can do without help and what they can do with help. Vygotsky learned in his studies that every function in the child's cultural development appears twice. First on the social level and later on the individual level. First between people, known as interpsychological, and then inside the child, known as intrapsychological. Vygotsky believes that the environment where a child is raised and grows up will influence how they think and also what they think about. Vygotsky suggested that culture not only shapes the content of a child's cognitions, what the child thinks, but it also shapes the process of cognition, how the child thinks. Cultural and developmental contexts of African American children support the development of cognitive preferences and related learning styles that emphasize relationships, social interactions, and emotional expressiveness, verve, rhythm, movement, and kinesthetic, and oral, verbal, and auditory modes. Many African American experience the rich cultural environment. Hip hop and rap are examples of music forms that are grounded in Black history of oral tradition, with an emphasis on rhythm and highly varied contents of messages. However, some of the songs include negative messages. From Vygotsky's perspective, the content of these messages may shape developing cognitions and understandings of the social world and illustrate tensions between African-centered perspectives on culture and the sequel of racism.
Kevin, I'm almost done.
Bronfenbrenner and ecological theory. This theory suggests that development is shaped by the interaction between the person, the context which the person develops, and the types of exchanges that take place in the interaction between an individual and his or her context. Person factors include characteristics of the individual, such as age, gender, race, or personality, or the individual's specific competencies, social skills, and academic ability. The context includes factors such as residence in an urban or rural community, family structure, and neighborhood characteristics. Processes involve exchanges such as parental monitoring, teaching style, and dating behaviors. Bronfenbrenner describes a series of contexts that may affect development. These include the microsystem, which is social relationships in which the individuals directly involved, such as peers, family, teachers. The mesosystem, which is the next level of content that encompasses the connections between different microsystems, such as connections between home and school or between family and peers. The exosystem, which is a social setting that may indirectly affect development, but where the individual does not have direct contact, such as school boards that set up the school policies. And the macrosystem, which is a broader context that involves the social structure, including media, culture, and government. He also added the need to consider the chronosystem. This is a set of temporal and historical changes that may affect development and alter the settings, context, and characteristics of the individual. The microsystem is where most direct interactions between the child and environment take place. Microsystems have a direct influence on the child's development. An example of this is a child can form social relationships with children in their karate class. The mesosystem proposes that children don't develop only by influence from their close family environment, but surrounding environments are influential on child development as well. An example of this is having one of your parents chaperone a field trip. The exosystem is settings or events that the child does not actively participate in but have a profound effect on the child's development. Unlike the mesosystem and microsystem, the exosystem influences the child indirectly as it goes through other individuals that have an influence on the child. These can be temporary, such as a parent being laid off, or it can be long-term, such as death of an extended family member. The macrosystem is the culture that the child resides in and includes the government and customs. They usually evolve over time because future generations can change. An example of this is someone's socioeconomic status. The chronos system includes transitions and shifts in one's timeline. This may also include the socio-historical context that may influence a person. An example of this is a parent's divorce. This will affect the couple's relationship, and it also affects the child's behavior and the child's development. Media and technology, increasing cultural diversity, and globalization in hip-hop culture are critically important factors in the development context of African Americans. As a child develops, the interaction within their environments become more complex. This complexity can arise as the child's physical and cognitive structures grow and mature. Phenomenological variant of ecological systems theory. Spencer, Dupree, and Hartman offer an expansion of the ecological theory that considers the experience of African Americans. In their phenomenological variant of ecological systems theory, they suggest that the process and outcomes linked to any specific phenomenon are shaped by the individual's meaning-making and the developmental, sociocultural, and contextual influences that shape the meaning-making. A large dark-skinned female adolescent opposed to a small light-skinned male adolescent may shape interpersonal and intrapersonal perceptions and result in variation in risk linked to self-cognitions. A large dark-skinned female adolescent opposed to a small light-skinned male adolescent may shape interpersonal and intrapersonal perceptions and result in variation in risk linked to self-cognitions. These risks, protections, and possibilities influence and are influenced by an individual's immediate experience of stress and adaptation. These experiences are shaped by factors such as neighborhood dangers and resources, access and utilization of social support and daily hassles. Stress and adaptation experiences are linked to coping methods involving either adaptive or maladaptive problem-solving strategies. These identities influence and are influenced by developmentally specific productive and adverse life stage outcomes, which are linked back to risk contributions. The University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education did a study on 14 to 16-year-old middle adolescent African Americans. They used this for examining an achievement variable, which was negative learning attitude. Explored by a gender, a regression model that contained risk, stress, and a reactive coping variable for the prediction of negative learning attitudes was investigated. For boys, stress was an independent stressor across steps independent of the other variables entered. Social support variable and perceived unpopularity with peers was a significant predictor of girls' negative learning attitudes. For boys, the findings suggest that important roles for teachers and peers in the negative learning attitude of mid-adolescent economically disadvantaged African American students. Thought-provoking questions. Why do you think Spencer, Dupree, and Hartman expanded the ecological theory by adding that any specific phenomenon is shaped by the individual's meaning-making and the developmental, socio-cultural, and contextual influences that shape meaning-making? Which theory do you believe best describes the development of children?